If the Olympics offered women's baseball as a sport, the USA women's national team would be that team. Our four guests today all are gold medal winners. They're champions, they're leaders who have played, coached, and are managed the USA women's national baseball team. They all continue to build the game of baseball for women as they mentor young girls and women through programs like the MLBDevelops Trailblazers, EDI, and Breakthrough. Common thread you're going to find amongst all these folks is the love of the game and how much they want to share it with young folks coming up into it. But amidst all of that, there are still challenges on field and off field. And one of those today we're going to be discussing that's not a pleasant one. It's bullying. We'll talk about bullying and what some of those issues. And basically, the four great people are going to be here today. Veronica Alvarez, manager of the USA Women's National Team, also the girls baseball ambassador for Major League Baseball, firefighter medic, I love that, a coach for the A's. Tamara Holmes played with the women's Colorado Bullets. Woof, I love that team. I love the history there. One of the coaches also, I believe, with MLBDevelops and firefighter in Oakland, and has been a business owner, I know, with a CrossFit business as well. Alex Oglesby, assistant coach for the USA Women's National Team. And in 2004, you were on the inaugural team won the gold in the first Women's World Cup of baseball, and now is president of Evolution's girls baseball and co-managing the 18 and above and under national team. And lastly, Malaika Underwood. Thank you, Malaika, as well. Outstanding player with USA Women's National Team since 2006. Assistant coach on the USA Women's National Team in 2023 and 2024. And this year, Malaika was hired as executive director of the Professional Women's Hockey League Players Association. And part of that job is tasked with protecting players' rights as well. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So bullying, it's something that's can't seem to get away from. And I know that probably each one of you have had your own experiences with it, and then also your conversations with the young ladies on your team. Tamara Holmes.
Yeah, so I think I should start in that I had called this group together. So Alex and I and Maggie Meilinger, who's not on the call, were part of the Trailblazers this year. And we had some talking groups with the players. We were getting a common theme of players coming to us and saying that, hey, they've been getting bullied or pushed off teams. And we were trying to figure out why. Like, this obviously is not something new to us or an issue. It just seems like it's gotten worse. And in some cases, there's been like physical harm or dangers there. And it just seems like the climate is worse. But I realize that's probably also a conversation of like Little League Baseball and youth baseball in general.
Malaika Underwood.
One thing I'd bring up, and when Holmesy said to me that she felt like the climate was getting worse, it made me start to think about my own experience. And I grew up in San Diego. I was the first girl to play high school baseball back in the mid-90s. This is when Holmesy was playing for the Silver Bullets, not to age her or anything. But I remember that the players on the team were often not the problem.
Yeah.
It was the parents in the stands. And often the other team's parents that were, I don't know, threatened maybe by the situation, and not so much parents on the team I played on, but occasionally, a kid might not make the team and the parent would be upset and you'd hear comments. And so what I started to think is that this is learned behavior. The kids on the field, if you're good enough, they're happy to have you there, right? They're not worried about whether you're a girl or not. If you're performing, if you're getting hits, if you're making plays on the field, they'll be a great teammate to you. But it's the parents and whatever expectations that they have around the sport and whatever they have around their own kids' performance that really leads to the problem. And I imagine that continues. My kids aren't yet young enough to be playing competitive sports, or not yet old enough, sorry, to be playing competitive sports. But I still get that vibe with other friends and folks who are participating in youth sports these days, that it's the parents, man. And that's disappointing because they should know better.
Veronica Alvarez.
To me, when I hear that, especially when moms in the baseball space are the ones talking poorly about the girls that are on their sons' teams, it's like such a missed opportunity to set the tone for, gender equality. Why are you starting the conversation that girls are lesser than, and you're doing that by the way you speak about them, by the way you're reacting to their presence in the field and things like that. And it's such a shame that they would do that to a girl and not set their boys up for success and for future greatness of being great treaters of women. And you see it all the time. I also think it's a parent thing, and it's definitely a learned behavior. And that to me is a big shame. But I would also add that to Holmesy's statement, I think it seems worse now too because of social media. And that's always the conversation, is social media. But I think the feedback that we get a lot of the girls from Trailblazer Series and through the MLB Develops events is that when they get the recognition from their local news station or news like art journalist or whatnot about them participating in one of those events, that amplifies the bullying that they start to receive. And so that's unfortunate, right? And that comes from jealousy and whatever they want to do. But again, I think it all stems back to the household and what the parents are setting up their boys to do.
Sorry, I should have introduced each one of you as we began to speak or asked you to introduce yourself. Sorry for the interruption. Just continue. I shouldn't even.
Your guests aren't going to recognize our voices, Mark.
Can you believe that?
Wait,
No.
and can I backtrack for a second too? I just realized I totally left Veronica out of being at Trailblazers too. Like something felt weird, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were there too. Not to get us too far off topic in the mom brain there, but and I think Malaika's right. It used to be, or it felt like to all of us, like when you were the only girl on the team or only woman on the team or coming into a situation, it's awkward at first, but kind of once you've proven yourself, then the players, they do get over it, right? And at least they're not outwardly showing it, but I would like to say that most get over it, and then it's about playing. And what I feel like is this uptick of, one of the worst stories I heard, was short of some of the ones that may have involved probably some physical violence or altercation, I should say, is a girl had played on her team for a couple of years and was obviously one of the top players and had the coach's support and was enough to start. But then over a couple of seasons, parents start chirping, and I believe these are, like Alex said, also, mainly women. Then why is she playing over my kid? And now you have these 8 to 12-year-olds where their parents are hinging their MLB hopes on these little kids and then taking this narrative home. And now the kids are coming back and being increasingly rude or bullying to their what was previously their teammates.
That's the one thing I wonder about bullying. I know you were talking about once they've been elevated, they go back home. It's like, it's not Hail the Conquering Hero. It's like, oh, you think you're hot stuff. And that treated like that, and they're kind of ostracized, I would guess. And it's got to be challenging when you're not able to be with that player consistently. I mean, throughout the entire year. You're not on a team with them 6 months or whatever, I guess, because I'm thinking a lot of the different programs are there. They're there with you for a weekend or maybe a week. And what happens after that? Is there any communication with those players outside of the programs?
Sorry, Alex. On the youth side, we only get them, for the 3 events throughout the year, and some of them might only be at one event. So I think we all do our best, and I think we do a good job of the time we have with them, of empowering them and making them feel seen and heard, and that there's a future and that we've all kind of overcome these things. So we're trying to fill the void of us not always being present at these events, and we do a deep dive of it, but it's not enough, right? And then they go off and they're all by themselves, or they're with unsupportive teams or coaches or whatnot. So it's difficult.
Alex Oglesby.
Yeah, I think because of my work on the youth side, I am sometimes in touch with these players more throughout the year than just within the couple events with MLB. And it's either their parents might reach out or they have a different door open with all of us because we've met them at these events. We try to encourage them to make friendships and use us as resources throughout their time when they're not with us. But what's hard, I think, on the coaching side is it's not like we're their local coach where we can say, hey, we'll be at your game. We're going to be there to support you. Let me talk to your coach and, vouch for you as a player, or, do anything to show them actual physical support within their local teams or communities that could help them along the way, right? We can't lay any groundwork for them locally. So we try to do, like Veronica says, we try to do our best with the time that we're given with them and try to encourage them to make the most of their time when they're there. By that, we mean make friends with the girls that are there who are maybe across the country, but going through the same things as they are, so that they can use them as sounding boards and friendships that are people who are going through the same thing at the same time as them. So it is constricting as coaches who want to help and want to move the needle with these girls and help them through their journeys to not be able to be there. But we try to do our best to give them the strength while they're with us to take back home with them.
Yeah. And it doesn't even go away either, which is the hard part of this conversation. And like what we do is like, players like Whitmore and Olivia Pichardo that have experienced higher stages of baseball and a lot more attention than the young girls at Trailblazer Series. It's still hard for them to see the commonality in their experience, or even like the commonality in the experience that I've had within professional baseball. Like, it's hard for them to see that other people's are experiencing it. I've had this conversation with Whitmore and Olivia separately, and it was both like mind blowing to them. I'm like, oh, I didn't even consider these things, that like Whitmore had the same experience as me, or you had a similar experience. So even as very smart and developed women, it's a hard experience for them to go through, of being the only one, and then the attention and what the attention brings from the naysayers and all those things. So, but as the goal, right, and as all of us, we get stronger as we experience it. So they're definitely stronger because of it, but it sucks to get strong like that.
Well, people have to understand that these girls and women don't necessarily want to be the first or the only. It's just the reality that if they want to play baseball, they have to be the first and the only often, right? They want opportunities to play this sport. And if we can create those opportunities, if we can create opportunities past the youth level that are competitive for girls at the high school level, the collegiate level, and the professional level, that's where they're going to go. And you've seen that in other sports. And so this idea that these girls and women are a threat to these boys or men's careers is just so ridiculous, because they have the same dream. They have literally the same dream, which is to play baseball. It's that simple. It is that simple.
It really is. I mean, it's interesting too to see at the lower levels, you have so many girls playing Little League baseball, let's say, right? They're young age, they come out, you can play, well, at least here where I live, you can play Little League before you can actually play softball. At a younger age, they can start Little League. So a lot of the girls will start with Little League, and some of them continue. But you get the message right away that, especially if you're a good ball player, hey, you've got more opportunities in softball. You should go play softball. And the coaches, the parents, why are you here? Go play softball is the message to them. And so these boys are witnessing that same message. Is just integrated from day one into the message that they're hearing this all the way through. So when they do come across a girl in high school or upper levels, college, that's what they immediately just think. Well, go play softball. You have softball. We have baseball. You have softball. You don't belong here. And not recognizing the differences of the sports. And so that message, unfortunately, is just carried across. And I think that's part of where it stems from. Again, going back to what we touched on earlier, that at home with the coaches, all of those messages, they're hearing from adults. They're not making up these messages on their own. They're hearing it from adults in pretty much all their playing life.
Yeah, I think, like Malaika said too, if we don't start creating our pipeline for the middle part, you're going to start losing people, because when people ask you why, well, why not just go, it's easier. Why deal with this, right? So we're talking about support groups. Like, what are support groups usually for, right? I mean, it's not like a hiking group. Support groups are usually like, hey, I want to stop drinking, or I want to stop hitting people, right? So like you have this support group with girls in baseball, and you're like, yeah, like I love baseball, but doesn't this suck? Yeah, this sucks too, right? So it's like, then what are we doing? And I don't want to lose girls that want to play baseball. Why do we play? Because it's a different sport as opposed to softball. Softball is not that softball isn't great, right? But then we have to start asking these questions like, where is this going to go? Why do people want to put up with this? And now, like with softball being, there's a pro league and NIL deals for all kinds of things for people now, right? So I feel like you're going to start losing girls that want to play this great sport, and they're just getting punched and kicked on the way out.
Yeah, I think Malaika's point, and Holmesy touched on it a little bit, but at the last screening of See Her, Be Her that I was at, somebody asked why. It was a simple question of like, what's the goal here? Why are the girls and the women trying to be the first Major League Baseball player, right? And I think there's a lot of misperception in that situation, and they think that all these women, Whitmore being at the forefront of that, are trying to be the first to play Major League Baseball. And I'm not going to say she's not, but that's because it's the only opportunity. If we provided Whitmore an opportunity to play professional baseball with women, she would have easily taken that track. Right. And so it's not that she's trying to take the sport, or that not just her, all of these women, all of us, we're not trying to invade the male space. We just want to be playing baseball, and playing with the boys is the really only option at most places. So that's one misconception that we need to work through. These girls just want to play baseball. If they had the option to play with girls, I assure you that's easier. And as far as fitting in and socially and all the things and not being bullied, they prefer to go that route. So providing those options. And then also the other misconception right now that's a big question is if both baseball for women and softball for women can coexist. And to me, it's like, yes, of course they can coexist. It's two different athletes that are trying to play the sport. There's two different games. But we do lose a lot of players to softball because of the lack of opportunity. But if there were opportunities, both could coexist.
And just to emphasize the point, this isn't just a baseball, softball thing. The professional women hockey players that I work for, before the PWHL existed, they wanted to be the first woman in the NHL when they were kids. Why? Because that's what they saw. That's what they knew. They wanted to be a professional hockey player. That was the only option. Now, along the way, there were other iterations. There were other opportunities. And here we are at the PWHL, and they have a great opportunity at the highest level to play and be professional athletes, not just by name. I mean, they're paid to be full-time professional hockey players. That's what they do. And that's what they wanted to be. So we can't pretend like this is just a baseball problem, right? This is a women's sports problem. If we're not giving them the outlet, of course, they're going to look at those opportunities that men have and say, well, I want that. And why shouldn't they? No one can answer that question to me other than they should.
One, I think if they want to be on a team, co-ed or whatever with it, and they should be able to. But I think there should still be an opportunity for women to have a women's league if they want it.
Yeah, and we were hoping over the years, from the Silver Bullet, from the women's, professional baseball league, even to USA Baseball, and especially I think more so with USA Baseball having such close ties to Major League Baseball, that Major League Baseball would show some interest. And I think I shared with you, Mark, like the picture I saw on the internet with Manfred. It's like, hey, wherever there's baseball, we're going to put softball, right? And to me, it's like, what's the underlying thing that you said there? You've never even recognized women's baseball, even during our gold medal or our tournaments, right? So, but to me, that statement is saying, hey, we're doubling down and we're making a place where women should be, right? And I don't think I'm reading too much into that, but now and for him to come out and say that when there's another professional softball league happening, which I'm happy for that too, but again, it's the narrative, and it just really makes it hard on women's baseball overall.
I think it goes back to some ignorance too, right? And not to say that he is being ignorant by saying, that the women's track is softball. I think it's the same question. Like, it goes back to that same question that I've gotten so many times lately is, can they both coexist? Can they both coexist? So his ignorance is making him think that they can't. So then therefore they're backing something that has more, legs underneath it. And so to them, it probably seems right. They have no idea. They probably think it's the same sport. It's very similar. It's a female version, blah, blah, blah. All the things that we know are not true.
Seriously, the understanding of just giving people a chance to play the daggone game. And Kelsey, she's opened that door. She's making it, people see it. But I look forward, I think we talked about this before, Veronica. I look forward to the time where we're not talking about first. We're talking about good players being able to play in the game, period. And that's what she is. But as of now, first still seems to be something that's going to be part of the conversation when a woman's in the game.
Well, and to the topic of the night, when there are firsts, we don't need trolls. We don't need people bullying the first or the
Thank
only.
you.
Like that is just simply ridiculous. It is so low. This person is putting themselves out there, working hard, earning a spot on whatever team they're playing on. And for people to use any platform, whether that be a social media platform or some other platform to try to tear somebody down, is just simply ridiculous. It's unacceptable.
And it's unacceptable in any realm, right? I mean, truly, it shouldn't be accepted at any age, in any place. But I see it even on the boys' baseball side, coaching on the boys' side. It's one of those things. A lot of times, it just gets looked at as, oh, they're just kids being kids. And what we're seeing, though, on the girls' baseball side, just to speak to that, it goes just another level. Right? It's not just the kids involved. Again, it goes back to the adults involved, and it just causes so much more harm when they're having to put up with it at that age. I am so glad that social media wasn't around when I was a kid, first off, because that's brutal. I mean, people get to say everything that runs through their head at any given time. And then you get the kids who go ahead and read it. And they think every little thing is true. They think, Joe Smith or Kathy Smith on the back end of a comment is, the president of the United States and is, an authority figure in the subject matter, right? And it's just not true. So they take it as that everything that is said about them is true. And I can't imagine having to have played boys baseball at that time with all of that going on. It was bad enough to just hear the chatter in the dugouts when we were playing, let alone, or behind me, if I was catching and the parents behind me. I mean, that was enough. I didn't need to hear all the other comments that were on social media. So it's just interesting what these girls are expected to put up with now as well. Kids in general, but these girls are expected to put up with so much more and to be perfect on the field. And that just adds just a whole nother layer to it and a whole nother level of pressure within the game that's already hard enough.
It certainly is a climate of quarterbacks and people just being able to feel like they can say and do what they want. And like Veronica said, it's like in every realm, right? For us as firefighters, sports, hockey, and people need to get back to some common decency. And one thing it reminds me of is when a couple years back, we're reading the Matheny Manifesto. And I believe he was an ex-pro player, but was coaching Little League and just saw and I don't know when the book was written, but even then just realized the issues that parents could be and said, okay, here, this is how I'm going to run my team. And these are these things. And I feel like coaches are saying that now, but as soon as certain players aren't getting playing time, here comes the parents. And I was telling Alex, it's like, it surprises me because with travel ball, there's way more opportunities. There's so many teams. And it seems like this problem has gotten harder. You would think with scarcity, right, that you would see this stuff, but like there's teams everywhere and everyone decides like, they have an opinion about it.
It's funny you bring up that book. So we used to share that manifesto with all of our parents beginning of the year. We'd send that out because even when I first read that, there was pieces of it that were not new concepts, but they were eye-opening to me as a parent, right? I could see the coach's side, but I was new to it on the parent side. And things like you're cheering your kid on, but you know the pressure that that's putting on your kid. And the whole extent that that thing went into, it's a brilliantly written book, and just the paper, you know, it's shortened down to just like a few pages that you can read, but it really shows you what else athletes have to go through and what the external pressures are that are put on an athlete. And to your point, you get into these travel ball situations. I think now all of the parents just think that their kid should be the one, or their kid is the one. So instead of not making a team and having to fight through that, every kid is given an opportunity everywhere, which has its pros and cons too, right? So we just think that our kids shouldn't be told no, and they should be allowed to do whatever it is they want. And I think when you find, you know, the good coaches and the good programs are the ones that have those lines drawn where it's not tolerated. But unfortunately, you get the kid who is, you know, hitting dingers and, you know, is throwing 70 miles an hour as a 10-year-old, and every coach wants them on their team because they want the W. We're forgetting about the fact that youth sports is about development.
It is sad to see youth sports being sort of taken over in a way by business in that way. And they're all selling the dream. And then that's what fuels it, as they're selling this dream. There's more opportunity, to your point, Alex. And so now everyone thinks they're going to be a pro. And the reality is there's a lot of lessons that we're losing out on teaching our kids because we're treating youth sports differently. It's not entirely different. I'm not saying these problems didn't exist 20, 30, 40 years ago, but they do seem to be amplified by the business of youth sports.
I like what Malaika said. If, you know, when we talk about what we want to get out of this, right? I wanted something tangible that I could put out on some of these sites so that other girls could see that they're not on the island. But also some of these parents and like said, like the trolls that may or may look at it and have something critical to say is, let's not forget again that youth sports is about development. I want my kids to potentially play sports because exercise is good for them and it makes them better students, and to learn life lessons on how to work with other people within teams and deal with ups and downs, right? So let's take it back to that, and not like my 10-year-old is up grinding every day for what's going to be the next 10 or 15 years of hopefully becoming a professional athlete. Because if you look at the percentages, right, it's still less than 2% or 3%, something ridiculous. That has not changed in the same as this narrative hasn't changed much. That also has not changed. But also, like, for the other girls and women to know that, like, we're still out here working on a solution. And one of the things that always comes back to me is, like Malaika said, is maybe having co-ed baseball, right? If we start thinking about logistics and things, like some of that could exist at the college level or the club level, and some of these things where it'll give opportunities for girls to go to college and still play. And co-ed teams are also filled with guys who are good athletes, but maybe they couldn't make their varsity teams. We do still have solutions that we are working on, right? It's not just us talking about this or complaining about it, but we want these girls to know that we see you. We want these parents that are out of pocket to know that we also see you. And, you know, like, you're going to get crushed if that isn't in front of any of us. Like, just be an adult and raise good kids.
Yeah. I mean, what an opportunity. It's like, to me, it's super simple. It's like, the girls just want to play baseball. Like, just let them play baseball. And then from a parenting standpoint, your sons are going to have to compete against women the rest of their life, right? And for jobs in their careers, they're also going to have to coexist with them and be friends with them, right? So, like, setting them up for success now, like, let's just take advantage of that. Why are we waiting till later? We're putting it all on Alex, and she's the mother of 2 sons.
Yeah. I was just going to say,
You got to carry the weight, Alex.
I'm doing my best with my boys. I can only
Raise
promise
them
that
right.
with my two.
Raise them right, Alex. Raise them right.
I try. I think they're pretty good boys, but I also have a good groups that, I've been fortunate enough to coach, and Veronica is coaching, young men also. And I think the impression that makes is huge as well. And I tell you, on the positive side is that I've gotten to be around a lot of great men. And Veronica, you speak so highly of some of the men you work with, most of the men you work with at the A's, that are supportive men who pass that message down and support the message of, so what, that she's a woman, right? She knows this game. She's authority too. There's nothing different here from the message that you're receiving about baseball because she's a female. And I know the organization that I coach with here has been completely supportive. The boys don't bat an eye. They're great, and the parents as well. So the message, though, has come from the top, and I think that's probably the same within the A's organization. So I think it goes back to just making sure that we're surrounded by good people that can pass that message on. And if I got to raise two more to add to the good guy population, I will be happy to do that.
Yeah, our presence in this space, right, helps create a better experience for the young girls, which I know is a lot of why we do what we do, right? And even though it might seem like a insignificant interaction with a 12-year-old boy or 15 and under, whatever the case may be, it goes a really long way for them to just make it normal that women are in the game, girls are in the game. And then they just kind of proceed forward with that being a common, like a norm, right?
Right.
Something they're accustomed to. But yes, like we sit here and we talk about the bullying and we sit and talk about the negativity of it. But all of us know that there are a lot of supporters as well. So always to make sure that we're looking back on that and not just settling in the negative actions of some people. And in the spaces, just like Malaika originally said, the boys don't have an issue with it, right? If you know how to play and you win, they're good with it. That's the same thing that happens as a grown woman in the professional male space, right? They know I know the game. They know I should be there teaching the game, and they respect me for it, and they treat me just the same as anybody else in the space. So it's usually the people on the outside that have an issue with it, and not the people within. And I'm working with former major leaguers, 13, 15, 17-year-old, year major leaguers that see me as an equal in that space. And so again, it's educating the outside, but each of our touch points within the community, I think, is very valuable to the growth of it. Sometimes it seems like snail pace and we have issues that take us backwards, but it all does work in a positive direction eventually in the long run.
And I must be, we give Alex all the pressure raising two boys, but also having a son. I must have went a little hard the other way because he asked me, I remember a few years ago, if he could play, because he didn't know that boys could play baseball. So he'd only seen me playing with the women, or we had other women on our co-ed team.
I have a similar story. My 5-year-old daughter, well, she's 7 now, but she was 5, and I thought she would enjoy watching the Little League Series, World Series one summer, because they were, kids, right? So she had seen adult women playing, but I'm like, oh, she'd love to see kids play, so she knows that she can play. So I turn it on, and she's looking at the TV, and she's kind of making this weird face. I'm like looking at me, and finally she says, "Mom, what sport is this?" And I was like, "It's baseball." And she says to me, "Boys play baseball?" She had no idea because she had only seen women play baseball. So just think about what that says. To seeing is believing, like see her, be here. All of those sayings, like, it's so true. She had no idea because in her world, she had never seen boys play baseball. Never.
Yeah. There's another coach friend of ours who we also played baseball here in California together, and her son grew up in our dugout of women, but his dad played slow pitch softball. So he always see his dad playing slow pitch softball and his mom playing baseball. And so somebody made a comment about, him playing baseball, and he's like, "No, I'll play softball because boys play softball and girls play baseball." And, I never forget that story, and seeing him raised around all of these women. He came to girls tournaments with us as a peer to all these girls, but was just helping out in the dugout or playing catch with them, and is, you know, a total gentleman. And again, one of the guys who has been raised well. And I think there's probably a lot of stories like that. We don't hear them as often.
You think guys in fast pitch softball are just sitting around like nobody loves us, right? like I almost never see it. And I remember when we were at the Pan Am games, we're sitting in the elevator and everyone's in USA gear, and there was like a Colombian team on the elevator, and we asked them like, "Hey, what do you guys do?" They're like, "Oh, we're track and field." And they look at us and we're like, "We're women's baseball." And we see the other guys wearing the US gear and we're like, "What do you guys do?" And they're like, "We're men's softball." And everybody was just quiet.
Oh, I love it. Those are some great examples of seeing where it's never an issue, because they've grown up seeing women play baseball, and there wasn't that competitive piece like what you were talking about, Alex. But I love that story, Tamara. That is something.
Yeah, we appreciate you allowing us to use this as an outlet. Like I said, I just hope that if it reaches a couple of people and they know that like we care and that they should be sticking up for themselves. Sometimes I like to say proverbially, you have to punch a bully in the mouth, right? And there may have been a time growing up as a youth where I had to physically do that, but people are just gotten too bold with being rude and. Yep. And it's an issue. And if you want to raise, you know, good kids that are good in sport and good in life, like something has to change.
Well, I want to thank you all for sharing your stories and your thoughts on this. And I want to thank you as somebody who enjoys the game, you know, all that you've achieved and all that you're continuing to do, not just with USA, women's national team, or the MLBDevelops, but I think you put a positive vibe out there, you know, in a difficult situation. Thank you all for being here today. It's been a real pleasure. And Malaika, thanks for keeping me honest. Thank you very much, and continue doing what you're doing, please.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good seeing you.
Later, dudes.
All right, bye-bye.
We would like to thank our guests today on Baseball Biz on Deck, Tamara Holmes, Veronica Alvarez, Alex Oglesby, and Malaika Underwood, for taking the time to discuss the growth of bullying girls and young women in sports and the steps that parents, coaches, and players can take. You may discover more at www.stopbullying.gov and at the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening.